Hello, in this video I'll show you how to edit and retouch your photos when it comes to Photoshop without using any kind of shortcuts or any kinds of plugins when it comes to Photoshop. So in case you're a beginner and you're interested in learning how you can edit or do skin retouching and color grading for your photos with no shortcuts involved, this is the best video for you. So simply like the video and don't forget to subscribe this channel in case you're watching and you are not a subscriber to this channel. So after importing the image or the photo that you want to edit within Photoshop, the next step is going to be working on the skin retouching. So for the skin retouching, we are basically going to be using frequency separation as a skin retouching technique. So remember, frequency separation is going to get this very image and it's basically going to divide it into colors and textures. So with this very image selected, just create two layers, that is the color layer and the texture layer. So in order to create those two layers, simply come to the background image and you drag and drop twice, just like that, and you can see that we have two layers right here. Then after doing that, simply double click to rename this to color, the middle layer, and double click on the name. You can name that to texture. After renaming these two layers, we want to remain with the information as named on the layers respectively. So just come to the color layer, select it, and come to the texture layer, click on the eye icon to turn it off briefly. Then you're going to come right here to filter, come to blur, and come to Gaussian blur. So when you come to Gaussian blur, take the radius slider down and you look for an area on the skin. So use this pointer and click on the image area and click on that area that seems to have more skin details in your image. And after clicking on that area, you can see the preview right here in this window. Then click on the radius slider or this pointer, click and hold down and you drag it forward. Release the click button or stop clicking to see the effect in real time. So the point here is we have to stop at the point whereby we are just starting to lose out on the skin textures in the image. Move the radius slider and stop at that point whereby you are just starting to lose out on the skin textures or the skin details. So we're just going to proceed and take this forward like that, as you're looking at the very image and this preview right there. So I'll just take it forward. So at about 7, that is when I'm just starting to lose out on the skin details. But when I look at the image, I can still see or identify the outlines of the image. So stop at that point whereby you are just starting to lose out on the skin textures, but you can still identify other facial structures or other body structures. Then just come and click OK. After clicking OK, come to the texture layer and activate it or turn it back on so that it can now be visible. So in the texture layer, we want to remain with our textures or the details in the image. So in order to remain with the details, we have to subtract the colors from the details of this very image. So how to do that? Just come to where you see image and come to apply image. And as soon as you do that, you're going to notice that it's going to open up this window that is going to be having this information. So under source, the source is basically the name of the photo that we're trying to edit. Then under layer, select color layer because we want to remove the color from affecting the textures. That is why we have selected the color layer. Under channel, select RGB. Then simply come to blending. But since this is a 16-bit image, so in case you have 16 or 8 here, these are settings that you have to use. So for a 16-bit image, under blending, make sure you select add or past 100%. Make sure that the scale is to offset 0 and make sure preserve transparency and mask are not checked. Preserve transparency and mask are not checked, and simply come and turn on the invert option. And you'll see as soon as you click on invert, the colors are going to disappear from the image and you can now see only the outlines or the details of the image. So in case you're having an 8-bit image, after selecting the color layer, channel RGB, make sure the invert option is not turned on. Under blending, select subtract. Make sure you type in these values. The scale is to offset 128 or past 100%. Preserve transparency and mask are not checked. And you'll basically have the same result. So for my case, mine is a 16-bit kind of image. I'll basically come and I revert the blending to add. Scale is to offset 0. Click on invert and you can see it makes the image gray. and it is going to hide the colors, and in this way we can only see the details or the textures in this kind of photo. So I'm just going to come and click OK. So after doing this, just come to where you see normal right here, click and scroll down to linear light. So just select linear light, and that linear light blend mode is going to hide the gray color from affecting the image. Then after doing this, hold down Ctrl and select both layers. Then you can drag and put them into a group, and you can rename the group by double clicking and rename this to frequency separation. And as you can see, for this case, you can see when we turn off the initial image and we leave the group activated, you can see it is basically the same image. But when we open up the folder, you can see that we have the colors alone and we also have the textures alone. So combining both colors and textures, we end up with the same image. So I'll just come and I turn this back on. So once we're done separating the image into colors and textures, the next step is going to be refining the colors alone and as well as refining the textures alone, so that when we combine both refined colors and textures, we end up with what we call as, or what we know as, the retouched photo or retouched image. So just come the color layer first of all and turn off the texture layer. The reason for turning off the texture layer is because we don't want any kind of distraction from the textures as we're trying to perfect or fine-tune the colors or the skin tones of the image. So for this, we just want to blend the tones or the skin color of the subject in this case. So with the color layer selected, we are just going to come to the brushes and get the mixer brush tool. So after getting the mixer brush tool, make sure the settings for every tool you select in Photoshop, the settings are always going to display above here. So with the mixer brush tool selected, make sure the hardness set to 0, soft round brush is selected, make sure clean brush is selected, and ensure that this second option, that is clean brush after each stroke, is selected. Then a weight is going to be 9%, then weight is 9, load is 75, mix is 90%, and flow is 100%. Then make sure sample all layers is not turned on, because when you accidentally leave this turned on and you, for example, leave this turned on as well, when you start painting over the skin, you are commanding the brush to sample information from the selected or active layers and paint them into the color layer. That is why it is painting textures back into the color layer, which we don't want. So I'm just going to undo that, Ctrl Z, or you can use Command Z on the keyboard to undo. So make sure sample all layers is not turned on or is not checked. So turn off the texture layer, color layer selected. So it is going to be time to blend the tones in the image. So how are we going to blend? We are going to make sure that the size of the mixer brush tool is slightly bigger than slightly the same size as the area that we want to blend. So make sure the size is small enough to blend in a given area, and make sure the size is appropriate to blend a given color in a given area. So for this, we want to blend the midtones alone, we want to blend the highlights alone and the shadows alone. And where these colors are transitioning from one color to another, we are going to use a very small brush to blend those colors and transitions. So I'm just going to start blending. So to blend, simply click and hold down. And by the way, don't zoom all the way in. Don't edit with this kind of zoomed in format, because when we edit at a distance, we can see or identify the uneven skin color transitions in the image. That is why I recommend that you slightly retouch at a distance. So to blend, simply click and hold down. Yeah, click and hold down, and you move the brush in a given direction. And by the way, in case your brush is showing a plus icon, make sure you deactivate the caps lock key on the keyboard to have the brush in this circular kind of format. So click and blend like that. And once you're done blending a given color or a given area, click once again on a new color and blend that color once again. So keep on doing that, and you have to follow the way the face is shaped, just like that. So I'm just going to do this for the rest of the areas that have skin color or skin tones. And you can see I'm moving the brush in a direction of how the skin is of the subject, so that I can maintain the originality or the original shape of the body or facial structures in this case. So I'm just going to do this. You can see the cheek is moving in this direction, so I'll as well follow that kind of direction just like that. So I'll blend like that, blend like that, and as you can see, we are now having a smooth kind of image. So I'll blend to get rid of this eye bag just like that, blend like that, reduce on the size and blend right on this line below the eye to blend it within the surrounding area. So at this point you may notice that the image looks plastic, but the reason as why it looks plastic is because we have turned off the details or the textures, and we are now working on colors to refine the colors in this very photo. So I'm just going to reduce on the size of the brush and blend on a small area to blend the transitions between these colors to create a nice and smooth transition between those colors. I'm just going to blend like that. So when it comes to the nose area, I'm just going to blend on the nose area, this highlight on the nose, and blend this dark area on the nose, the dark line. So just keep on doing that for the rest of the areas that have color in the image. And by the way, in case you want to blend on a very tiny area, you can now zoom in and blend on a very small area. But for majority of the image, you can work or edit your photo or edit your image at a distance. So I'm just going to reduce on the size and make sure that I blend also this other area of the face just like that, so that I don't leave out any area that has or contains skin color or skin tones in the image just like that. So I'll basically do this for majority of the areas. Come and also blend on the neck area just like that. So once you're done blending, the next step is going to be coming and turning on the texture layer, and you can see the skin details have not been tampered with, and we have only worked on the colors in the image regarding the skin tone. So you can say before, after, before, after. The skin details are still left intact within this very image. So in case you want to fine tune the image and even make it better, you can as well add a second technique, that is using the lasso tool technique or method to fine tune the image for areas whereby you may have missed out, to blend using the Mr. Brush tool. So how are we going to do that? Select the color layer, and this time around leave the texture layer turned on or activated. Then you're going to come and get the lasso tool and make sure it is on the new selection mode. Use a feather of about 20 pixels. So just type in 20. Make sure anti-alias is selected, and this first option, that is the new selection mode, is activated or selected. So after that, we're just going to slightly zoom into the image by using Ctrl plus on the keyboard, or you can use Command plus on the keyboard. So we're just going to draw over the skin. So click and hold down and you move like that. Keep out from the hair and the edges of the image, because sometimes it's going to create a little bit of haloing effect in some areas. So the shape you make at this point has to follow the shape of the face as well. Make sure you draw small shapes onto the skin. So just come to filter, come back to blur, and come to Gaussian blur. So it is going to bring back the initial radius we had for African separation. So you can manually move this forward. So click and hold down and move it forward, and stop at the point whereby you are getting a very good texture for your image. So at about 21, that is when we are getting a very natural texture for this kind of image. But the trick here is multiply the radius that you had for your frequency separation by 3 and type in the value. So we had 7 for our frequency separation. Multiply that by 3 and type in the value. So you're going to delete 7. So 7 by 3 is 21. So I'll just delete 7 and put 21 like that and click OK. And you can see it is basically the same result. So to deselect the selection, click out from the selection and come once again and make a new selection like that. Come back to filter, blur, Gaussian blur like that. So click OK. So we're basically going to do this for the rest of the areas that have skin on the subject. Fine tune some of those areas. And by the way, in case the effect is too much in a given area, right click on the selection and come to fade Gaussian blur, and you can reduce on the effect in that given area. So I'm just going to do this for the rest of the areas whereby we have skin color or skin tones. So take your time doing this, because skin retouching really takes time to master and perfect, and the more you practice, the better you're going to be getting at editing or retouching your images. So I'm just going to do this for the rest of the image. So I tend to do this technique for only the face, because oftentimes it is the face that always has more skin details. So after doing that, you can say before, after, before, after for the skin retouching process. So we have worked on colors. So the next step is going to be working on the details or the textures. So come and select the texture layer. Once you have selected the texture layer, you are just going to come to the clone stamp tool and measure for the settings. The hardness set to 0, soft round brush is selected. The mode is set to normal, opacity and flat 100%. Align is checked and the sample is set to current layer, because we want to remove blemishes that are part of the currently selected layer, which is the texture layer in our frequency separation group. So we're just going to zoom in by using Ctrl plus on the keyboard. And the reason for zooming all the way in is because we want to see or identify the unwanted skin details, pimples, blemishes, acne, to remove them. So to remove a pimple, for example, this one, hold down the Option key on the keyboard, alternate for Windows. So Option for Mac, alternate for Windows, Option, and click on a clean area near the pimple. And by the way, make sure that the size of the clone stamp tool is slightly bigger than the pimple or the blemish that you want to remove. So make sure that it is slightly big enough to cover the pimple. So Option and click on a clean area. Release the Option key on the keyboard and click once again over the pimple to cover or remove the blemish in a given or particular area of the skin. So you have to keep on sampling, and so to sample, Option and paste over the pimple. So you have to keep on sampling from different areas close to where the pimple is located. So keep on doing that and eliminate all the unwanted skin blemishes and pimples from the image. So I'm just going to do this for the rest of the skin imperfections or pimples in the overall skin area. So take your time as you are trying to clear out or remove all these unwanted pimples and blemishes from your subjective skin. So take your time as you're doing all this. So keep on zooming in and out. Command plus to zoom in, Command minus to zoom out. So I'm just going to do this for the rest of the pimples and blemishes. So this really takes time depending on the amount of pimples or blemishes that you would like to remove from your subjective skin. So the more the pimples, the more the time. The less the pimples, the less of the time you're going to be taking doing all this. So for these kinds of beauty images or beauty portraits, you really have to get everything done perfectly, because some people online really have that tendency of pixel peeping and zooming all the way in. So take your time as you are doing this, because at the end of the day you want very nice, beautiful and perfect results in your image. So I'm just going to zoom in and ensure that I've removed every tiny blemish in this very image. So the trick is, so to move to a new area, hold down the spacebar key on the keyboard and move and hover around to work on a brand new location. So I'm just going to do this for the rest of the pimples and blemishes all over the skin. So I hope you are learning and benefiting from this beautiful and detailed kind of video right here on my YouTube channel. So don't forget to like the video in case you're finding value out of this kind of video. So reduce on the size and work on all these pimples and blemishes. I prefer not to forward anything, because forwarding really makes it feel like I have skipped some steps. So I want you guys to see how the image falls into place or gets into place, so that we don't feel like we have cheated. So I'm just going to remove all these imperfections regarding pimples and blemishes all over the skin. So to remove a line, sample and draw over that line like that. So Command minus, or you can use Control 0 to zoom out. So after that, you can see before, after, we have removed the pimples and blemishes, and now we are done with the skin retouching. The next step is going to be working on the colors so that you can get nice and uniform colors regarding the color grading process. So we're just going to close the frequency separation group and create a stamp visible layer. A stamp visible layer is basically a merged layer for everything that we have done below here. So in order to create a stamp visible layer, we are simply going to press Shift Option Command E on the keyboard. That is for Mac. For Windows is Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard, and you can see it creates a merged layer. After creating that merged layer, we are going to come to Select and come to Subject so that we can select the edges of the subject in this case. And once the subject edges have been selected, we are basically going to come to the new layer icon. Click on the new layer icon right there. You can see it is just down here, and change the blend mode from normal and change it all the way down to color. Then you're going to come to the brushes and get the brush tool, and for the settings, make sure it is soft round brush, hardness set to 0, the mode is normal, opacity and flat 100%. We are basically going to slightly zoom in. So for this point, we just want to sample a color on the model's skin that we want the rest of her skin to look like. So how are we going to sample that color? We are just going to hold an Option key on the keyboard and choose a color of our choice. So I'm just going Option and click on the color to sample or choose that given color. So Option and sample, and after choosing that color, we are just going to start painting. So start painting all over the skin. I know the color at this point may look unnatural and unrealistic, but you're going to be perfecting that later on. So make sure you stick around so that you can learn and understand how to color grade and get the most kind of beautiful skin color or skin tone for our portrait. So as you're doing all this, make sure that you don't paint on the makeup, because at the end of the day, we don't want to change or distort the original makeup. So keep away from the eyeshadow, keep away from the eyebrows, and keep away from other areas that have makeup. So, and as well, keep away from the hair of the subject. So I'm just going to paint like that. So in case you paint in unwanted areas, I'll show you how you can perfect that color in those areas and how you can erase or rub away colors from a given area. So we're just going to zoom in, Control plus on the keyboard, or you can use Command plus on the keyboard. So I'll make sure that I've painted majority of the areas with our color in or all over this very image. So you can see right now we have this kind of nice color all over the image. So after we have done this, the next step is going to be fine-tuning the color, because this doesn't look nice and beautiful and doesn't look natural at all. So how are we going to do this? First of all, we are going to come and get the eraser tool and make sure the mode is set to brush, opacity and flat 100%, and erase color from areas that we do not want the color grading of the skin tone to be or to affect the image, just like that. So after doing this, we are just going to zoom out, then come to the opacity of this layer, make sure it is selected, and reduce on the overall opacity to about, we prefer about 54 looks okay. You can see the before, after. Then you're just going to press Ctrl D, or you can use Command D to deselect the active selection. After deselecting the active selection, the next step is going to be fine-tuning the color so that it can look better and realistic. So before we fine-tune the color, we are going to take the image to camera raw. So we are going to create another stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Option Command E, Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard to create another stamp visible layer. Then after creating the stamp visible layer, we are basically going to come back to Filter, come to Camera Raw Filter, and in Camera Raw, we are just going to come down to our color mixer, because color mixer deals with colors. So In order to add a little bit more of the contrast to the skin tone, we have three options: hue, saturation, and luminance. Luminance deals with the brightness level of a given color. Saturation deals with the intensity of a color. Hue deals with changing a color. So I'm just going to come to the luminance, and I simply darken the oranges because oranges deal with skin color, oranges, reds, and yellows. So for this, I'll only darken the oranges to add more contrast into the model's skin tones. About -23 looks okay. So depending on the skin tone complexion of the subject that you're working on, you have to move this accordingly. So I'm just going to come to saturation and reduce on the saturation slightly of the oranges. -2 is okay. Then in case the skin color is looking too greenish or reddish, you can play around with the hue of the reds to your taste or to your liking. So we shall leave this the way it is and go back to Photoshop for us to do the next adjustments regarding the skin to make it look better and natural. So we're going to come to hue and saturation, come to master, select the reds, and simply come to where you see the lightness and take down the lightness just like that. And this is going to make or reduce on the amount of oranges regarding the skin tone of the subject. So I'm just going to take this lower to around negative 10 or -12. -10 is okay. Then come and create another black and white adjustment layer. Change the blend mode from normal to multiply and come to the opacity and reduce on the overall opacity of the multiply blend mode just like that. So in case you want to make the image even better, you can play around with the overall colors regarding this very image. So we're just going to come to selective color, and since we have some magentas in the blacks, come to selective color, target the blacks, and come to the cyan and move the cyan slider forward just like that. And this is going to make the blacks richer and look better regarding this very image. Then we can as well create another selective color adjustment layer and come and target the whites and play around with the colors in the image. So you can play around with these colors to see what works best for you. So I'm just going to move this around just like this to see the color that works best for us in this case. So I feel like this is close to what I want or desire. So right now we are almost done with the color grading. You can now come and add a color balance adjustment layer and come to, for example, the midtones. You can add a tiny bit of greens to our midtones just like that. And we can as well come to our highlights and add a little bit of cyans to our highlights. -2 looks okay. So this is what we have so far regarding the skin retouching and color grading. You can say before, after. So after this, I feel like the skin is having a little bit more of the greens. So I'll come to the midtones and add a little bit of reds just like that to the skin tone, just a little bit. So this is what we have right now. So let's do a little bit of eye whitening. So in order to whiten the eyes of the subject, you're basically going to come to hue and saturation. Make sure master is selected and come to saturation and reduce on the saturation to around -77. With this white layer mask selected, press Ctrl I, or you can use Command I on the keyboard to invert the effect. Come and get the brush tool. Make sure you have black and white on these two color swatches. In case you have any color that is not black and white, you can simply press D on the keyboard, or you can click on the 10 swatches. So make sure white is the top color. Then you can now zoom into the eyes of the subject and you can whiten the eyes of the subject. So paint using a brush on what you feel is meant to be the white area in the model's eyes, just like that. And this is going to remove any color that is not meant to be white. Make sure you don't paint in the corner of the eye because that is usually having that kind of reddish color. So after painting, you can see what we have right now. You can come to the opacity and reduce on the opacity in case the effect looks a little bit unnatural. So I feel like the skin is too orange still. Come to hue and saturation, reds, and simply come to lightness, and you can take the lightness even lower to your taste or to your liking. So I feel like this is okay. Then I can as well come to the hues and play around with the hues so that the color looks better to my eyes. So depending on your eyes or your side, you have to follow the steps accordingly. So this is what we have been able to come up with in this very video. And finally, in order to save or export the image, simply come to File, Export, come to Export As, and it's going to open up this Export As window. Under Format, make sure it is set to JPEG. Quality set the maximum, which is 7 for this case. Under Resample, make sure you have set it to bicubic sharper, and color space is set to Convert to sRGB, and Embed Color Profile have been checked, and click on Export, and you can save your image in whatever location that you want to save your image. So this is it for this video. I hope you have learned and benefited from this video. Ronis from Ronis Photography. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet more videos on this channel. Don't forget, keep practicing and as well keep creating.